Hi everybody. I'm going to show you how to do an IK leg setup today, and I'm going to include a group-based foot setup which resembles the more traditional reversed foot setup that will allow us to make a foot without having all of the extra joints that junk around with the reverse foot setup, and it's a little bit easier in my opinion to actually work with it. So let's get started. First, of course, we want to just take a look at what we've got in the scene. We have our joints for a, sort of traditional leg. And we have a controller over here that actually has no additional attributes, but we'll add those in as we go and start to set up the foot. So first and foremost, with everything, I always say, let's start with naming things. Since we're not doing a left or right, these are just going to be the hip joint, the foot control. I'm going to grab and just sort of snap into position over here. So you can see it just lives on the ankle. You can have this move to other places as well, but in terms of where the pivot should stay, this is where it should be. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. That's fine. And before I forget, I always delete history and freeze transformations. Now, the other thing that we need with any IK setup is some sort of pole vector. So I'm going to go over here into my NURBS primitives, grab a circle, and move it to the knee. Probably change the direction of this as well, maybe to Z normal. So if you're ever wondering what I'm doing over here, I'm just making the circle orient as if it was always supposed to be aiming forward. And now I can just sort of drag this forward. If you go into your side view, you can see I can actually just snap this to a decent distance away. The reason for keeping it reasonably far is to make sure that we don't have the IK flip backward because you moved your leg forward. So it's a little thing, but it does make it a little bit more user friendly. And once again, I will freeze transformations and delete history and call this leg PV control. And it's leg, not left. Leg PV control. All right, so step one, this is pretty quick. We're going to jump into our skeleton menu, create an IK handle. If you're just sitting on your computer for the first time in a long time, make sure to double check or reset your tool so that this will make sure that it's a rotate plane solver. And then select the top joint and the ankle joint, and that will make you your first IK handle. Let's name this leg IK. And then let's go to the other IKs. Now this is where you get to use something called single chain IKs. This is your current solver, the rotate plane solver. If you click this little arrow next to it, you get to activate the single chain solver. This allows you to make a single chain IK, which means it works between two joints, not three, two. So this way I get to grab this and make an IK here. And then I hit Y to repeat the last tool I've used. And I do another IK here. So I've just suddenly made 3 IK handles, which is wonderful. And now I get to do all of my basic setup. This is going to take like 30 seconds or less. Not 30 seconds, but it'll be quick. So this we'll call the ball IK. And we'll call this the toe IK. So part of the reason for doing this is for me to make sure that I don't lose track of what does what, and to get my foot setup going as well. And this is usually the part which kind of confuses people, first-time users, but bear with me, it will all make sense once we finish setting up and making the connections. So my first step in doing the foot is I go in and I hit Control G. So that's Control G. Here, Control G. And you can see I've made one group. and I'm gonna deselect it, do another Control G. So I've made two groups. And then the third one will be our third empty null. Now of these groups, the first two nulls, I'm gonna hit D to activate the pivot movement, and I'm gonna just hold down V as I go and snap this to the ball joint. I'll do the same with the second null as well. And notice if I'm still in D mode and I select something else, it'll actually still keep me in the pivot mode. And then null 3, instead of snapping to the ball joint, I'll snap it to the toe joint. And then I'll hit D to come out of my pivot mode. So this is group 1 and 2 and 3. So notice group 1 and 2 have the same pivot, and group 3 is on the toe. I'm going to grab the first two of these guys, the leg and the ball joint IKs, and I'm going to drag them into null 1. Why? Because then I can rotate the null this way. And then I'm going to take null 2 and I'm going to drop the toe into that. And that allows me to do things like lift the toe. And then I'm going to grab both of these two, null 1 and null 2. I'm going to drop them into the third group. That allows me to move both of these guys like this. So this is pretty interesting. But now let's quickly name these groups so that we don't lose track of what does what. So I'm going to call this the toe twist. And I'm going to call this, I guess, the ball lift, right? So ball lift. And then we'll call this the toe lift. So part of this is like just to make sure that I know what group is doing what. And then finally, I'm going to drop all of these into the foot control so that I get a full range of things for myself. So now I have these three groups and I have the foot control, and I need to be able to access these without making my animator go in and find these groups. That's where our attributes come in. So if you haven't done this before, this is going to be fun. We're just going to go in, we're going to select our foot control, and we're going to go into modify, and we're going to add an attribute. If you've never done this through the menu before, you can also do it through edit, and you can add an attribute this way. Either way, you'll get the same window. So of these, I'm going to just first come in and just make a kind of divider for myself, make it displayable but not keyable, add it in, and then I'll come back to it, and then I'll do a, let's do a ball lift. And I'll do a default at 0 and leave the rest. You can definitely make limitations. Toe lift, toe twist, and hit add. And what else do we need? Maybe a side to side, or but we'll keep. Oh, there's also a ball roll. So ball roll and hit add. All right, so now we have this. Changing the order of these things tends to be not a very good solution. You usually just have to undo it and redo the things. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to make this connection right now. I'll do it the way that I can, which is just to grab my foot control, get rid of the shape nodes. Don't hit delete, in case you were wondering. And then I'm going to grab these three groups and just add them in over here. So if you hit 3, you can see the attributes that we've already created. Ball lift, ball roll, toe lift, so on and so forth. And now we can make some direct connections. So if you're looking at these guys, hit E for rotation, and you'll see the ball lift, the toe twist. These are both things where the X axis works both, just to roll forward. The toe lift as well is all about the X axis. So let's go over here into this, And we'll set up all three of these to kind of expand as we need. And I'm going to hit 3, go with ball lift, do a rotate X. So here, 3. This is the toe twist here, 3. Let's do toe lift first, rotate X, and toe twist. Toe twist is going to be interesting because you want a rotate Y for this. So the twist goes to rotate, and then the ball roll has to use both the toe twist up and the ball lift. Now this is going to be interesting because it's going to break this connection right away, like so. But if you do use the ball roll, you get this kind of movement. So you can see it actually is what we really want. And then from there, we have the ball lift as well, which is just this, which we kind of want to do maybe a little bit more to. You either want to move it in this direction, which actually the toe lift does some pretty good things for us. And you can invert that. Also, you can just go ahead and add another group on top of this, or you can do a couple of other things. So even if you don't want the ball lift, if this is all you're really looking for, that's perfectly fine. But you can add in more information as you go and kind of play around with this. So let's see, this is the toe lift. Let's invert it and multiply it a little bit. So here's our toe lift. I'm going to hit tab, multiply, divide, and open it up. Let's make this -1 for now, because we're inverting it. And let's go with toe lift. If you can't find it there, you can just do input 1x and take the output x and pop that over there. So here we can say foot MD so that it'll just keep track of what we're doing. And let's take a look at this. So the toe lift now works in a way that we find reasonable, which is great. And then let's just go in over here and see if we can like fix this. So what if we multiply it by -5? I wonder if that'll work. Let's take a look, shall we? Yep, that multiplied it. And if it's too much, you can always come back over here and multiply it by -2 instead, so it just doubles the movement and, you know, makes it a little bit better. The other thing, of course, is just playing around with these guys as you go. And if we were to look at this in our outliner, one of the other things that you can do continuously is add more functionality into it. So say, for example, you wanted like a heel roll or a heel twist. You could make a new group, like so, hit D, and say snap it to the grid here and maybe pull it back, say where your geometry would be. Obviously, you know, I don't have geometry, so I'm just working with this, and we'll call this heel roll instead. And this I'm going to just pop into here, and I'm going to take the toe twist and I'm going to put it under that. So that now if we want to do a quick rotate and have it rotate this way, we can, and this way, so that if somebody has to grind their heel into something, they have that pivot available to them. So all that would require is coming back in over here, going into your edit, adding an attribute and saying heel roll or twist, depending on which way we want to go, and you can kind of build on top of it. So I can hit add, and I can also do heel roll, and add that too. And now we're back into our node editor, and I'm going to grab the heel roll group, put it in here, and hit 3. Grab the rotate. Let me make this bigger so that we can see this. But now you have heel roll and heel twist. By default, I'm going to assume heel roll is X and rotate Y, depending on how we go. But now you have this. Let's do a heel twist. There we go. And a heel roll. There we are. So you can absolutely keep modifying and expecting working with this. If there is no good solution for the ball lift, or if you don't need it, which I currently think I don't, I can come over here, go into edit, and I can delete attributes as well. So whatever I have selected goes away, and now we've got these. So that helps us finish setting up our IK. And there's just one final thing that we have to do, which is manage this pole vector. So grab your pole vector control, grab the leg IK, the one that is the rotate plane, go into constrain, pole vector. And now all you need is, a little bit of testing and making sure that this is where it should be. And that's your IK leg demo. Yeah, have fun.